What's up, everybody? Welcome on in. Sooners on SI pod here on a bye week, but no days off for us. It's crossover season. We had men's and women's basketball on Monday night. We'll have player interviews tonight, Wednesday. So not your typical Brent Middles press conference, stuff like that. He has spoken on the SEC teleconference. And, of course, we'll have the final battle series softball on Thursday night, which means we are basically checking all the boxes. Have a ton of fun. Ryan Chapman hanging out here in Norman. Made it back safely, or I guess technically I'm in Moore. Who cares? From Knoxville. Hoover, you did not make the trip out, but the great John Hoover. I got to say, Aber, you missed a hell of a trip. I know that you both have taken it before, but John, dark mode lived up to the billing.
It looked electric, man. It looked so much fun. And the pre-game, I'm sitting there going, I probably should have went to this game. But, hey, couple of weeks, Tuscaloosa, here I come, hopefully.
We did that. Carson and I made the trek back. Carson, you all good from it was a long ride on Sunday, and the biggest thing was like the time change, great for our sleep. But when you get to the Arkansas border and it's pitch black, the last 2.5, 3 hours felt like it was 10 hours. I was just like, I want to go home. I want to be on my couch.
Yeah, no, I was the same way. Thankfully, listening to the Seahawks bettered my mood a little bit, but I'm with you. I was tired, felt like that was the longest stretch for sure, but no speeding tickets for the either of us. We made it there safely, no crashes. So all things considered, I think we have to put that in the win column.
Not a small feat.
Yeah,
good job.
The rare trek across I-40 and back without any incident. Not too often. Aber, you were hanging out from home watching that thing. I know that you and I were both in the building in different places in 2015, but I can tell you, man, just as loud, just as much Lil Jon, everything you could have asked for from a trek to Knoxville.
Yeah, and it's exactly what we expected. We expected a wild atmosphere, and it lived up to it. Like Hoover, I was a little bit, you get that little bit of attention at the first of the game. You're like, it would have been nice to be there. But, it was sure entertaining. Watching it at home and getting to see, we got to hear the Kirk Herbstreit meltdown over Tate Sandel's pants in real time.
Yeah, that was something that we did not. I don't know if by post game we had kind of known that it had happened or what. The pants are obviously like a small subplot, but we obviously having to get going. Carson and I did the abridged post-game pod. Hope that was okay with everyone. Most importantly for us, it meant that we got to embark on a 13-hour drive with like a normal amount of sleep, which was clutch there. But who've just taken a step back, looking back, it was a big time win, a big time victory, probably the landmark victory, the signature victory of the Brent Venables era. Let me ask you this. What was more encouraging? What do you think is a better indicator for Oklahoma going forward? The defense finally finding their turnover gene again, or John Mateer looking like he got his swagger back after that rush on that 3rd and 16 / that throw to Satania on the sideline.
It's all about Tate Sandel, man. Come on, you've totally overlooked the MVP of the game. That guy's he's a heat-seeking missile. He's the you see the goalpost. He's that little target that you see in the dark, and all of a sudden it just explodes out of nowhere. He's the dude pushing the button on the explosion. It's so impressive to watch him kick. I tell you, Ryan, that game was this close to going very bad for Oklahoma. I thought it looked like in the early stages, right? Because you had Tennessee go march down the field, touchdown, and then a quick punt by the OU offense. I think it was a 4 and out, not a 3 and out. But next thing you know, here comes Tennessee again. They're marching, they're doing whatever they want. And you're thinking, oh boy, this is not a good combination for Oklahoma. Not playing complimentary football. And then R. Mason Thomas and Owen Heineke put their heads together at the quarterback, and it's 7-7. It's like, whoa, where did that come from? That might end up being, guys, the play of the year for the Oklahoma Sooners.
Pretty incredible too. I know that up in the press box, I don't know what it was like on the field, Carson, but up in the press box, we were all like, it was one of those moments where show another replay because we're all trying to count how many yards did R. Mason Thomas drag the tight end. I think we landed at 25 or 26, somewhere in there.
Yeah, that was remarkable. I mean, that's against Miles Kitzelman, who was being dragged too. That's a big guy. That is a really good tight end, and R. Mason Thomas just made it look like no challenge. That play, I mean, R. Mason Thomas has told us, at some point I wanted to be a running back. That was my goal. I fell in love with running backs before I ever did NFL defensive ends. You saw at least a little bit of it. I don't think he's going to be taking snaps from Xavier Robinson or Torrey Blaylock, but if things get desperate, I think we saw what we needed to see.
And it wasn't just that he drug the tight end down 25 yards, which is what I landed at as well, but it was that he was able to reach down and grab the ball while already engaged in the block and then drag him 25 yards. It was one of the more incredible plays that I've seen in college football.
Kitzelman, though, think about how deft you have to be executing a perfectly legal block, and then all of a sudden you're grabbing a guy and tackling him in the same motion. No, that's how blocking is, guys. He had him locked up on the jersey and was trying to drag him, and all of a sudden you realize, holy hell, he's got the football.
It's fun how that goes. We saw a couple of great hands plays between R. Mason, that scoop. I thought the Robert Spears Jennings interception was a good hands play. Certainly his hands play on special teams. Something that Doug Deacon, if you didn't watch it, be sure you head either to Hoover's YouTube page, John Hoover Media, or the website, OklahomaSoonersOnTheSide.com. Hit the football tab, scroll to see the Doug Deacon interview. He hits us with the da-da-da, and he was like dead serious. I was like, Doug, I hate to break it to you. Hands plays do not make the Sports Center top 10 on a action-packed college football Saturday like that. But some good stuff all around it, and the result of that is now Oklahoma heads into this bye week, or they're in the middle of this bye week, with a chance to heal up, whether it be R. Mason Thomas or like further along Gentry Williams or Kobe McKenzie, who pulled himself out of warmups. We can get to R. Mason here in a second, as Carson was asked about R. Mason on the SEC teleconference. But you also get to this moment where first college football playoff rankings drop on Tuesday night. Oklahoma pops up at number 12. If we were setting the field, Oklahoma would still be on the outside looking in, because you have to factor in the 5 conference champs. Virginia, not in the top 12, the highest rated ACC team right now. Memphis, not ranked at all, but would be the highest ranked next G5 or next conference champion, next conference leader, that type of thing. But you look up and down, plenty of opportunity. Oklahoma, if they can beat Alabama, they'll have every opportunity to jump in. A 10-2 Oklahoma is going to be in the field. Conversely, look at the other way. BYU and Tech play each other. You've got Georgia and Texas they're going to play here in a few weeks. You got Texas A&M and Texas. So plenty of chance to move up and down, move around. And Aber, I think if we had gotten here and I just told you, hey, head into the last bye week, Oklahoma's going to be sitting at 2 losses. Everything's in front of them. I think we all would have said, not only is this a 2 thumbs up right now, but as long as Oklahoma doesn't go get blown out in Tuscaloosa, you probably like their chances of being a 9-3 team that has a case to even be in, that kind of thing.
Yeah, they certainly control their own destiny as far as a playoff berth is concerned. And I know there's some trepidation about Notre Dame's ahead of them. Some of the other machinations there that go along with the playoff rankings, but OU still has a chance, and they are able to, if they win out, they're going to the playoff, no doubt. And, maybe if they win 2 out of the 3, they can still squeak their way in, as long as probably that loss is to Alabama and it's pretty close and some other things happen. So I thought the initial rankings were good for Oklahoma, and, certainly give them a shot here moving forward.
A couple of things I thought that were important things to note, Monder. Tennessee sticking at 25 keeps Oklahoma with the ranked road win, which I think is massive. And you look at Tennessee's schedule ahead, they've got that Vanderbilt game, but if everything goes chalk and then they beat Vanderbilt, that's an opportunity for Tennessee to bounce back up, at least to the 20 range, somewhere in there. It might not be a huge leap, but that's important. Similarly with Michigan sitting at 21, they've got that big game with Ohio State. Obviously, at the end of the year, if that could be something where Michigan could stay unbeaten until then, and even then have a good rally there, whether they win the game or just hang tight, whatever that looks like, you'll have a couple of wins there. Missouri hanging on right now. We'll see. They've got A&M up. If they get totally smoked, does that fall out? Can they play A&M close enough to maybe lose the game but stay ranked and kind of thread that needle there? And then you flip it around and look the other way. It looks like the committee, and judging by, on the teleconference, they were heavy eye test, stuff like that, But for Notre Dame team, if they drop one more of these games, go Pitt, go, I guess, or go Navy if you're an Oklahoma fan. Or you can look at it the other way, and if Miami drops another one and falls out, if USC kind of falls off a little bit, that's Notre Dame's best win, their only win, really. If that kind of lessens, it could make the case a little bit more interesting later on if Oklahoma gets into a 9-3 situation. But the straightforward, just be 10-2, and then the ACC is getting one team in, and let the Big 12 cannibalize itself would be the hope if you're a 9-3 team.
Yeah, I think if you're asking for 10-2, I think that's asking for probably a little too much for this Oklahoma team. Maybe. I mean, we'll see. They could go to Tuscaloosa and win, play well, play complimentary football, make big plays, and do all that stuff that they have to do. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but it is a lot to ask to be 10-2 against this schedule. Now, you go 9-3 against this schedule, all of a sudden you're starting to stack up this win over here versus that Oklahoma had, or who were their losses to, 3 top 5 teams or top 10 teams, versus, okay, who did this team lose to? Who did Notre Dame lose to? I saw Pat Forty's column this morning on the selection committee doing Notre Dame a big favor for no real reason other than they lost a couple of close games to a couple of good teams. So, and it might be that the Golden Helmet blinded the search committee, and it's a brand recognition thing. And maybe that's what Oklahoma's, one of the reasons you get into the SEC, maybe that's what Oklahoma's fighting right now is other people's brand recognitions. Hey, OU has the OU paperclip on the side of their helmet, and they're playing in the SEC, so hard to argue against those.
Yeah, although I'll throw this in. I think a lot of people are still stuck in the way the polls used to be, how the AP poll used to be, and still is to some extent, I think, for a large percentage of voters. But the college football playoff poll is much different, much more malleable. It can change based on what your resume looks like now versus what it looks like in 2 weeks, what it looks like in a month. And I think people overreact a little bit to, hey, Notre Dame's ahead of them. What have they done? Things like that. I think the resume can change so much based on all those other factors that you talked about. If USC falls out of the rankings, Notre Dame's resume looks a lot less impressive. Things like that, and the committee has shown its willingness to make those moves. So I think obviously analyze it, look at it, talk about it, all things like that. But let's just remember the reality that we're living in versus what this sport was 15, 20 years ago.
It'll be a lot easier. I find it hard to grapple with like the vast hypotheticals when we talk about the November 4th poll versus what it's going to look like in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, because we're really like 2 weeks away from, hey, there's this and that. Well, like the Big 12, for instance, once we know what happens on Saturday between BYU and Texas Tech, if you're an Oklahoma fan, you just basically go, okay, if Texas Tech wins that game, then you just want BYU to go lose to Cincinnati, maybe get dinged up by TCU. That drops out. And then you just say, okay, Tech win the Big 12. They've clubbed everybody else. One bid probably for the Big 12 because a Utah probably not going to get in over Oklahoma, though the committee loved them some Utah. But like that's one of those things that's like, hey, if BYU goes in and wins, it really flips, and how you view everything looks so different. Basically, for Oklahoma, it'll be full speed ahead. Priority number one, focusing on the Alabama Crimson Tide. If you can certainly walk into Tuscaloosa and not something like that, you're talking about, are we hosting the playoff game against who? Do we get the night game? Are we the Friday night game versus the Saturday triple head? What does that thing look like? And it's certainly a very different conversation. A lot of that's going to start with some of the guys that they need to get back on that defense. We talked about Kobe McKenzie pulling himself out of the pregame warm-up, and then R. Mason Thomas, which on the Sunday show, Brent Venables labeled it as a quad, something that he had said in Knoxville. He didn't think it was going to be a big thing for either one of those guys. Carson, you talked to Brent on the teleconference today. What do you have to say about R. Mason and kind of the update there, as that's obviously a crucial part of the Oklahoma defense?
Yeah, Brent pretty much gave a non-answer about it, which I think smart. You still have a week and a half's time until the Alabama game. Didn't want to get too specific with it. So not really surprising there's no major update, but pretty much just said we'll have to wait and see. We don't have a true timetable yet. But after the game, the post-game press conference he had, he said both he and McKenzie don't expect them to be out for extended periods of time. Obviously not saying they're going to be there for Alabama, but certainly didn't rule it out. So all of that stuff's still up in the air. We'll obviously know more next week with the availability reports.
That's lame. What Brent should have said was, yeah, he's back at practice, and we're handing him the football in offensive drills, and he's really carrying the offense. He's really taken off. Those other guys are falling back on the depth chart. He's our new star running back.
But is he doing good on good? Is he doing good on good though? Because you can't
do
play
good on
not do
good.
good on
That's right.
Yeah, we
You've
all
also
can't play unless you do good on good.
That's it.
can't do that. And also, DeMarco Murray would see him have one bad rep, and he would pull him off the field because he doesn't know how to run his running back rotations. We know this, but that'll be really, really important because we'll have a ton of Oklahoma Alabama preview next week, obviously. But peeking ahead a little bit, it becomes a situation where that moment on Saturday night, the game on Saturday night, you take away the last 4 minutes of poor, awful, terrible game management, which Brent Venables kind of went through that on his Sunday show of pretty specific, like, yeah, and he said it even in post game. It all starts with if you don't have the RPO call, you just run the football, you don't do the Hugh Freeze, Peyton Thorne, then you're not in that mess altogether, all that stuff. So that's a point that I think Ben Arbuckle certainly has learned from. Kevin Wilson, I imagine, next time will be in the headset, making sure that Ben Arbuckle remembers these lessons, things like that. It kind of is at an interesting crossroads, guys. We had a moment similar to this a year ago. Oklahoma beats Alabama. Senior night, that was more of a pride thing, not a big game for Alabama. They had their struggles on the road, well documented. And the whole question coming out of that was that going to be a turning point going to Baton Rouge, or was that just going to be a moment in a really tough season where a team that still has talent showed out and kind of played above what their level was the rest of the year for 1 week? Now, if Oklahoma doesn't go to Tuscaloosa and win, I don't think that makes the Tennessee game just like a fleeting moment, especially if it's a close game. Alabama's really good. But, John, it feels like this could be that had all the makings of a Brent Venables team that battles back and then throws up all over themselves, like we saw against Missouri, like we saw not in as sudden terms, but against Ole Miss, where they get back in front and they're not able to get back. And they didn't. They finally got over the hump in a big time game, in a big time road game. First road wins was 2019. Are there the breadcrumbs to finding that perhaps this crew has turned the corner a little bit, especially if John Mateer's back to looking like John Mateer?
Yeah, and that's why I labeled the R. Mason Thomas fumble return potentially the play of the year for Oklahoma, because it's saved that moment in the game. It might very well have saved the game itself. When you look at the final score, was a 6-point margin. Saved the game itself. And then, if you're able to build on that, if you're able to get a couple of guys healthy going into the last 3 games, last quarter of the season, you go on the road, 1 more road game, 2 more home games. You come out of that thing 9-3. Even if you lose to Alabama, you defend your home turf and beat Missouri and LSU. Then yeah, absolutely, that can be that game, that moment, that scoop with the right arm and the stiff arm with the left arm. Can be the moment that Oklahoma turned the corner with Brent Venables. Remember, going into South Carolina, his numbers in road games, in conference games, away from Norman, in 1-score games were not good. Well, since then, they've won 2 road games. They've won 2 conference games, 2 games away from Norman, ranked opponent. All that stuff is now turning a little bit in Brent Venables' favor. So 2 of the last 3 wins on the road. You kidding me? South Carolina and Tennessee on the road in SEC play. You'll see SEC teams saying, well, South Carolina's not good. You'll see SEC fans saying, well, Tennessee's probably not that good. Every time Oklahoma wins a game, all of a sudden the opponent's not that good. So we'll see. We'll see how it shakes out. But you're absolutely right, Ryan. These moments right here that we're witnessing on a week-by-week basis could be the impetus to turn this thing around for Brent Venables.
Aber, you've been in the press box with me and doing a bunch of going all the way back to Brent Venables' first preseason, when I think I was the first one in Norman that was like, I'm kind of tired of these really long press conferences. I think I was the first one to lodge that complaint to you, and I remember you being like, this was great, which it was at the time. But you've known me for a long time that I've been very tired of the Brent Venables dead man walking post game, things like that, where it's just broken record, same crap, got to be better, blah blah blah. I was actually really, really encouraged when it comes to Brent Venables, what he's kind of said on the radio post-game, stuff like that, where it seems like he finally almost had and last year, Jenny Bronchek had this moment with her team where she was like, I am tired of answering a question about a turnover every time I go into a post-game press conference. When are you going to be tired of turning the ball over? It sounds like Brent Venables almost was like, when is enough going to be enough of almost making this play, this, that, and the other? And I know that's not it's a move you can only really pull once, but I was really encouraged that it seems like Brent Venables himself coming out of the Ole Miss game was like, enough's enough. I know what this looks like. I've been a part of a bunch of championship teams. We've got talent. Figure it out almost, and they certainly did in Knoxville.
Yeah, they did, and it kept them in that game in the first half. Obviously, we talk about the fumble, but the interceptions, like you mentioned, the one from Robert Spears Jennings, and they've had some other chances, but they haven't come in bunches. But you've got to finish the chances when you get them, and you've also got to do the things to make those chances happen more often. And while their defense has been really good, they haven't done a lot of creating those opportunities. They were able to do that. And I think to answer your earlier question, Ryan, I think both of those things are highly encouraging. The fact that they were able to force the turnovers, because that's something that if you can do, you can you don't have to be as fine with everything on defense as they've had to be to this point. And then on the other side, to have John Mateer, even just be a shell of what he was before would have been great. But, he looked, really good running the football, looked like he was making much better decisions. And if they're able to sustain both those things, then, not that I think finishing with 4 consecutive wins is anything that's likely, but you at least put it on the table. And to have it even be on the table at this point, after everything that we've talked about before the season, during the season, about how difficult this stretch was going to be, I think says a lot about the job that this team has done, and Brent Venables has done in building some momentum here entering November.
Feels like there's a ton of guys, specifically on that defense, build momentum. Carson, I know that Peyton Bowen at the end of the Ole Miss game kind of had gotten replaced by Jaden Hardy for a little bit, came back, had what I thought was a really strong bounce back performance. Taylor Wine continues to be excellent. PJ had the big tackle for loss on the second punt right after the Xavier Robinson fumble, which helped everything kind of play some complimentary football. Cortland Guillory, a bounce back spot. It feels like, as much as we're going to flip over to the offense here in a second and talk about this really young offensive line, it feels like they found this is a defense that could making one less stop than really needed against Ole Miss, but it feels like that's a group that continues to get better, has been really, really resilient. And I described it when with Owen Heineke, your SEC defensive player of the week. I described it as like whack-a-mole, right? That Kobe McKenzie's down. Who are you preparing for? Well, now Owen Heineke pops up and has 12 first half tackles and a forced fumble, all that stuff. That's the kind of stuff that you like to see from this Oklahoma defense. And it feels like this depth is what's separating it from last year's defense, which was much, much improved and really good.
Yeah, I agree with that. I felt like this was a really good just week-to-week change. I didn't think they were just atrocious against Ole Miss, but that was the best offense OU had played at that point. You could see some lapses, a lot of big plays. They couldn't get out of those third downs. Playing an arguably better Tennessee offense with Brazel, one of the better receivers in all of college football. Joey Aguilar came in with crazy good stats. He looked like a deer in the headlights for most of the game, and that's really a testament to how well the defense played at all 3 levels. Like you said, Heineke was fantastic. Wine has continued to be excellent. I thought Boganowski was good when he got in. Some of the younger guys, which has been, it feels like every week there's 1 or 2 new guys, whether that's Jacoby Johnson. I didn't expect to see him in the mix against Tennessee. He got a decent amount of reps. Just seeing these new guys week in and week out step up shows what this defense can do and shows what the ceiling can be. It's not going to be perfect. They're playing against Ty Simpson in a couple weeks. Ty Simpson's really dang good if you haven't watched him. There are going to be big plays, but the depth gives me confidence that the defense will be able to put this team in positions to win big games. Whether the offense can do it consistently, that's yet to be seen, but just combining the effort from what the offense was able to do and how good the defense was at all 3 levels against Tennessee, that's got to be encouraging to Sooner fans.
defense traveled too, which was really, really important. We say it all the time, right? Defense travels. Well, it did to Knoxville and Hoover. You're going to get Gentry Williams back. You figure, just talking to Kobe McKenzie on Monday, it sounded like he was really, really close. And they had the recognition of, with the bye week up next, if you don't make this one, it sucks. I know you want to play in that, but you'll be able to be out there in Tuscaloosa. It'll be big. And the thing you can't overstate too is while Oklahoma is, they're doing that. We work on ourselves during the bye week stuff, but they're also going to be peeking ahead, getting ahead on game plan for Alabama. Alabama has an LSU team fresh off a coach fire and hoping to get that new coach bump, that kind of stuff. While Oklahoma's full speed ahead on Alabama, the Crimson Tide have a big game, an emotional game, a game that means a ton in the SEC. Anytime you play LSU, regardless of if it's 1v2 or this year's current rendition of the Tigers.
Yeah, and you mentioned getting Gentry back, and if you don't get Gentry back, you're not in terrible shape. You've got Cortland Guillory, who all he did was, I think Pro Football Focus said he led the nation in PBUs this week or something like that, getting after people. Brent Venables, he had the 2 pass interference penalties. Brent said that the first one was kind of a phantom call, shouldn't have been. So he was very pleased with how Cortland Guillory played. I know a lot of people are down on him a little bit right now, but guys, have you ever seen a true freshman come in and play with more confidence at a high intensity spot like cornerback in the SEC, what the SEC is in 2025? I don't know that we have, so not in a long time. But you're right. If the defense can do its part, which is carrying a lot, says a lot for this team. But if the defense just does what it does, okay, it doesn't have to be superheroes. They just have to get after, collapse the line, move the line of scrimmage, collapse the pocket a little bit, get after the quarterback, get after Ty Simpson, make him feel uncomfortable, and then make him guess at what kind of looks he's getting. Because I thought OU secondary, Brent Venables and those guys did a fantastic job of disguising what coverages they were in, making Tennessee think that they were doing one thing and they were doing something completely different. So if they can continue that kind of trend, then maybe the offense going into Tuscaloosa can not get in the way, cannot screw things up, cannot have 4 turnovers. If you get those things together, Oklahoma's got a real chance.
Good news is you've got a guy that has some experience thrashing an Alabama defense in Xavier Robinson, and it feels like Oklahoma has finally found something it can truly build on in the running game too. We figured like last bye week it was all about, hey, are they going to be able to get healthy with a couple of guys getting rolled up on against Temple? Fasusi was trying to work his way back, getting rolled up on against Michigan, but now, Aber, you've got Ryan Foje in for Derek Simmons. In the way that Foje is played, I know that Derek Simmons is one of your grizzled vets, but he's not able to work his way back. Even if he is able to work his way back, I think I'm liking the athletic upside of Foje and Fasusi. Then you add in Eddie Pierre-Louis, and I think that, obviously, if you want the offensive line breakdown, you want the full stuff, Gabe Eichert's the guy for you. But I think he said it perfectly that it's not perfect. There's stuff that EPL needs to improve on, but just the level of intensity that he brings, it goes all the way back to, it's something that Troy Everett told us at the end of the Crimson Combine, that Eddie Pierre-Louis brings a level of physicality that forces the other guys on that offensive line to either step their physicality up and go with them. And there's no better moment to illustrate that than him headbutting Fasusi looking like a stunned, like, well, I got to headbutt you now. Now we both sprint onto the field. Like, that gif is going to live in the EPL lore. But I think that more importantly, maybe unfortunately for Heath Ozida, who, yeah, he got put into the backfield, but I don't think it was like this egregious, awful performance. It's just that Eddie Pierre-Louis making sure that this offensive line is just kind of having to let loose and play physical, something that they haven't been doing for, it feels like, a year and a half.
Yeah, it just seemed like he set the tone out there for them and was able to give them a different level of energy, a different level of intensity than we've seen. And then you add into that the improvements that we've seen from Ryan Foje over the last couple of weeks. I think he's made some significant steps forward. We saw Michael Fasusi do some really good things. I thought his best game since Michigan. Also, they were able to avoid some of those penalty issues that had been so big. And that, to me, might have been one of the biggest surprises. And, not that the penalty numbers were small. They weren't. But they weren't the kind of penalties that you sort of thought coming in might be a problem on the offensive side with the false starts, the holdings. things like that. We didn't see those in bunches. And I just thought a much cleaner game overall from Bill Bedenbaugh's group. And I think that bodes well for their opportunities to continue to take steps forward. And with what they're doing with Xavier Robinson and his progress to this point, we've seen the physicality, the toughness from him. I think this running game can look much better, over this last closing stretch than they have for much of the season.
Let me ask you guys this. Do you think the Oklahoma offense's identity has done a complete 180 since, non-conference play, since Michigan?
I don't know if it's complete 180 because I think they'd still like to spread the ball out to Satania and Burks, and there's still going to be an element, I think, of wanting to run with John Mateer. But yeah, Carson, I mean, we talked about this a ton. For the longest time, it was Mateer just get the ball in his hands, pass to open up the run, let him cook. Now it feels like you can run with Xavier Robinson, sprinkling some Mateer into there, and that hopefully you're back to a more traditional. It should set up some longer stuff downfield when you add in some of the short passing game, which is a complete flip now that you have a healthy and firing Xavier Robinson.
Yeah, no, it's huge, especially as Mateer just works back. He's obviously, we've talked about this a lot, denied that there's still any physical issues with his hand, but you could tell that something's still a little bit off with his mental, just whether that's confidence, his eyes. As he continues to get more confident, get back into things, having somebody like Robinson's huge. I think if they could get Blaylock back to fully healthy, that Robinson Blaylock 1-2 punch could be huge. Because I mean, we've seen how good Blaylock can look when he's healthy. He was one of the better offensive players in the first half of the season. Really like his potential with this team. So I mean, those two guys open up a lot. Defenses have to key in a little more, especially with how much better the line looked against Tennessee. And then Tier can find his Isaiah Satania on a 5-yard slant. That dude's fast. He could get a lot more after that. I want to see them use Kanik more. I want to see them use Helms more, use some of these big bodies that we saw them throw to a lot early on. Haven't really leaned on that, but I feel like Giovanni Gibson in here too. Throwing to these bigger guys, that's another way you could get easy completions, even if they're not huge ones. For Mateer's confidence sake, I'd like to see them do that, but as far as the running game goes, that not only opens up obviously holes for the tailbacks, but for also Mateer running. You saw that against Tennessee. He looked really confident, which is something we hadn't seen since pre-surgery.
You also have the addition of Jermichael Carter in there, who we saw him take some of Giovanni Gibson's snaps, and I thought that was a positive as well, just as far as being able to identify, hey, Giovanni maybe not able to. He had made that little progression, but maybe not be fully up to speed yet. Well, you went out, you got a Jermichael Carter to kind of be the Giovanni replacement early and band-aid that over, and we just hadn't seen any trust kind of in Jermichael Carter quite yet, and so I think that's a positive there. And as you continue to grow back into it, especially if John Mateer is able to get back into a bit more of a groove coming on the other side of the bye week, it's like we imagine how much more cut and dry would that Michigan game have been had you from the start been able to rely on a Xavier Robinson punch alongside all of Mateer's play, as opposed to just finding the good running game late. And then certainly like that Auburn game, I know that you had two banged up offensive linemen playing through stuff, but not even able to get to 50 yards rushing. How much different would that have looked if you had the John Mateer that you got in the second half there paired with Xavier Robinson? We haven't seen all of that like come together quite yet for the Sooners.
Yeah, I agree. It has been. That's why I said it feels like it's flipped 180 degrees. They used to be this, everything John Mateer, quick passes, chuck it deep once in a while, work the sidelines, and now it's that. We used to see a lot of throws to Jaren Kanik in non-conference play, and now we're not seeing those so much. The competition has obviously stepped up. People can scout what Kanik was doing in the first half of the season, for instance. So those things, evolve over time. I just think it's fascinating that, if Torrey Blaylock is healthy, they're a power running team. If Xavier Robinson is healthy, they're a power running team. If John Mateer's healthy, they're suddenly a spread offense again. It's like, wait a minute, which one are you? So it's cool that they can be both, but it's kind of interesting that they're so far have been kind of one or the other.
About what Sandell is, which is now he's in the territory of if you just cross the 40, you feel good about putting at least 3 points on the board. With what you see out of Grayson Miller, which we saw even on Saturday, they have the misjoint operation with the snap and all that stuff. He's able to scoop it up quickly, get the punt off, and it still lies at the 20-yard line. And what this defense is, it feels like we've seen it in spurts, right? The first half against Tennessee, even where the defense on the field the whole time possession plays really flip toward Tennessee. They're able to turn that thing around. Same thing against Ole Miss in the first half, third quarter against Texas. Aber, it's almost the situation where if you can have the running game be the foundation and then sprinkle in the explosive passing game, that's where it complements your defense, complements what you've done so far on special teams. And then if you somehow, over these last 3 weeks, unlock the explosive passing play deep downfield, which you haven't really seen, that's where you're taking the jump from, okay, this has been a really, really good, frisky team that's kind of building this offense, trying to mold it and go along, to the efficiency jumps that would allow you to rip off 4 straight wins at the end of a regular season.
Yeah, I think it's ideal to be able to do both, certainly, but you've got to start with being able to run the ball effectively. And when they weren't able to run the ball effectively early in the season, that affects so much of what you're able to do outside of that. And you have to rely on that just constant short passing game that we saw, rely on John Mateer's legs, which can be dangerous. You don't want to put your quarterback in a situation where he's going to be hurt. And it just makes life so much more difficult. And as they've started to unlock some things with the running game, other things can start opening up. And it's not going to be perfect. This isn't going to turn into the Oklahoma offense from the Lincoln Riley era. But even if you can turn into just a good offense, not even a great one, then you give yourselves a chance because of how good your defense is, especially, again, now that they seem to have unlocked the turnover aspect of things. So some good signs for them for sure, but they've got to keep going out and proving it because, these teams that they're playing here moving forward have some really good defenses that can shut you down if you're not on top of your game.
It really just makes me think of, again, the schedule much different than it was in 2015, especially with what like Tech was at that time and some of the Kansas stuff like that. But it was a slightly delayed situation, but it is still mirroring Lincoln Riley's first year to a certain extent of come out, have the big explosion early in Neyland, go out, put a bunch of points on the board against Tulsa, against West Virginia. Then you have the setback against Texas where you forget that you can run the football. That was something that Bob Stoops had to hammer. Then suddenly, it's almost like you needed those setbacks to discover you could do the other thing to blend it all back together. Maybe John Mateer's setback. In the end, would you rather have beat Texas? Yeah, absolutely. Would you rather have just beat Ole Miss and already been up in the top 8 or 9 this week? Yeah, sure, fine. But this run, the John Mateer injury, forcing them to look again at Xavier Robinson and Torrey Blaylock, hopefully for Oklahoma, and it certainly does not look like it's this case with what they were able to do in Neyland, as long as it's not too little too late, and then you put that together against Tennessee in the second half, now you have a bye week to continue to build on that. It could be huge for Oklahoma as they go into these massive 3 games here down the stretch, Carson, and to try and put their best foot forward in the eyes of the committee, because as we saw coming all the way back to Tuesday night, just because if Oklahoma loses to Alabama, the committee appears to be watching these games and eye test. If it's an offense that goes up and down and they just lose out because of a field goal or something like that, then that's going to be a lot different than if Oklahoma just like can't run the ball against Alabama in 2 weeks and they're going, well, it's just a John Mateer, this, that, or the other, plus the defense. I think those two things matter greatly with how it's going to shape up if you're trying to do the 9-3 resume comparison, eye test comparison, all that fun stuff here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in better late than never. As long as you're still in contention, they are still in contention, obviously. 3 games, they're definitely in. 2 games, maybe they're in. But that's still a solid position to be in, like Hoover and Aber talked about a little while ago. I think it's huge finding somebody like Robinson. I think it's kind of impressive, too, that after his role was so minimal the first 4 or 5 games, that he didn't disassociate, didn't kind of just start wondering about what his next option might be, but has really come in and provided a much needed spark with Mateer, who hasn't been the same as we've talked about, finally showed some flashes of that against Tennessee. It's huge. The offense looks more efficient than it did, and that's obviously necessary against Bama, but Missouri, I mean, that game's in Norman. That Missouri team, they're probably going to finish with the same record as they had last year. That's a much better team than OU lost to at the last second last year. LSU, yes, they're without Brian Kelly. Yes, their offense isn't very good. They've still got some dudes. They have multiple former Sooners on that team. They're not going to want to come into Norman and lose. So, I mean, even with Bama being far and away the toughest game, it's not an easy road. And OU better not look too far ahead. Just in terms of Bama's good. They're not the only good team on this schedule, though. 3 games, got to win them all to lock your place. 2 of them to maybe have a chance. One or none, obviously you're out of it. So a lot to look forward to, and it is good that they're starting to figure some of these things out, even if OU fans wish that would have happened against Ole Miss or Texas.
Carson, you make an interesting point, and that is this. Brent took time out of his post-game press conference to address the youth and how they played on the offensive line, Fasusi and Foje and EPL, and said, we're going to have to take care of them, meaning NIL, right? We're going to have to give those guys their market value, so because we know people are going to come after them, being young, starting offensive linemen. Same thing for those running backs. Torrey Blaylock and Xavier Robinson have shown a skill set that is going to, pique the interest, let's say, of some coaches and some other programs around the country. So, yeah, when it comes to NIL, they're going to have to take care of those young linemen. They're going to have to take care of those young running backs, too.
Yeah, see Green, Caden from a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Well, good news is you can just divert the money that's already allotted to the running back room and just allot it to the correct people in the running back room. And I think that's an easy boom, 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 bounce the spreadsheets there, call it a day. Should be a ton of fun. We're going to talk with, scheduled to talk to Brent Venables and some of the players tonight, 6:15, 6:30-ish in there. So for your information, if you're looking for those videos, stuff like that, about 7:15 when we're done and getting those stuff uploaded, that's when they'll start to hit the YouTube and the website, Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com, as you noted. We weren't going to get all the way through this without revisiting Oklahoma's best player, the man that you can build the team around, Tate Sandell. It's kind of insane. Shout out to Carson again for in the bold predictions at the beginning of the year. He had predicted that Tate Sandell could be a Luke Groza guy. I think he should be a Heisman Trophy winner. That's just me. But it's a spot where it's insane, and it's funny that Alabama's on the horizon because you knew this. You could be an unbelievable football team and having a iffy kicker, which was kind of the front end of the Saban era. Now they got certainly a lot better at picking kickers, but that becomes a situation where it can be shaky for a team, even with a dominant defense, even with an offense. It must be such a relief, and that's why, like, as a joke, I've kind of asked a bunch of these big, especially the big defensive guys. I get a kick out of asking like a Taylor Wine and a Kobe McKenzie, what's it like to play football with Tate Sandell? Because it's the kicker, it's a short kicker, all that stuff, but. The honors continue to roll in, Hoover, and I know that Mike Brooks, great Oklahoma stat historian, put it out there. The Sooners, they've had some good kickers in their day. Never one that's quite gotten the Groza type hype, the All-American type hype, but it might be time. It might be time. Oklahoma needs to scrap the Mateer Heisman campaign and divert the media team's resources to being in Tate Sandell's corner.
Aber, you've covered this team long enough, I think, and Ryan, you've followed them, I think, long enough, that if the coaching staff will just not mess with the kicker at this point, he should be fine. You've had the kicker, Michael Honeycutt, remember? Went from All-American to couldn't make anything. You had Gabe Burkich, went from where Sandell is right now to kicking a burrito, and he's being, taken off the planet.
Yeah, at least we know where to blame that one.
It's weird. Yeah, it's weird. Coaching staff probably should have encouraged him to not kick a burrito. Maybe that's their level of involvement. I don't know. I just remember, it was Jimmy Stevens came in with all these All-America accolades. He finally got on the field, he made a couple of kicks, and then I think it just kind of went away. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Garrett Hartley's college career, which was fantastic, it led him to a really nice NFL career with the Saints. I think Garrett Hartley kind of tailed off at the end of his career, too, in college-wise, in terms of accuracy and, hey, we can rely on him for a 45-yarder. What the heck was that? One of those things. Where did that come from? So everybody loves Sandell. He's got nerves of steel and a leg to boot. Just don't mess with him too much up here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. They've got to, let him manage himself a little bit. Kicking is such a mental,
Yep.
load for guys, and when you miss one, it's really easy to let that snowball, which is why you wondered, how that initial miss that he had against Michigan would affect him. He was able to bounce back from that, and obviously has been fantastic. But yeah, if he can keep on the track that he's on right now, he's got a chance to be really, really good. And Hoove, to go back to your point about Garrett Hartley, over his first 3 years, he missed two extra points. He missed five his last season. Now, granted, he had 76 tries that last season as they scored a lot of touchdowns,
Yeah.
but still more misses and a greater percentage of misses than he had. Just missed a couple of field goals his last year, but yeah, certainly they, not that they completely lost faith in him, but that dynamic had shifted. Sort of the same thing with Jimmy Stevens, although it barely got going with him. So it'll be fascinating to see how this thing plays out. But certainly to this point, he's the best kicker that we've seen at OU in quite a while.
The good news, though, is that Jimmy Stevens did give Oklahoma a fantastic reaction gift. Bob Stoops keeling over on the sideline in Tallahassee, going like, "Oh my gosh, did that actually go in?" You have a couple of fantastic gifts that Tate Sandell has already given. You got the two all-time trips to Neyland Stadium, two quarterbacks shushing the crowd. Situate like I mean, Oklahoma, the content machine just keeps rolling.
It never stops. That's
Now,
why we're still in business.
the question is, who played the role of Eric Stryker on Saturday night?
I would say it was probably, I didn't see anyone go to the recruits, but Grayson Halton and Kip Lewis certainly greeted the student section on their way out the tunnel, and they made sure that they doubled back to see if there was anyone left to greet on their way back through. I think it was a we can't repeat what Kip Lewis said, but Grayson Halton certainly let him know, we come into your trap, we take over your trap. I think that's the cliff notes of what Kip Lewis and Grayson Halton had to say.
Yeah.
Well,
I know
at least
that
at least Butch Jones wasn't there to lecture them about their sportsmanship.
Yep. That too.
yeah, I don't think there was too much to worry about that.
25.
Carson has fantastic video of that whole exchange. If you somehow have not hit the YouTube page to see his highlights, again, there's no game on Saturday, so just go watch his highlights back. Obviously, it'll bring some good times there as well. Everything from this week, obviously, no availability reports or anything like that, since there's no SEC game or game at all this weekend. So, Oklahoma on SI.com, that'll start to flood in, like we said, Wednesday evening, and then we'll have plenty of content to carry you through your bye week, of course. Carson and I hauled ass back from Neyland, though, so that we could go to the Lloyd Noble Center on Monday night for the official start of crossover season. The Oklahoma women get going with a game against Belmont that was fine, and then it was like, what is happening right now? And then it was fine again in the end. The Sooner men had like a similar experience, although I guess it was a different way. The Belmont women outshot the Oklahoma women so far from deep, and OU went 15-30 from the line that you're going, okay, if they could just make some of this. For St. Francis, it was like, where did these scoops come from in the restricted area, stuff like that? But in the end, victorious for the men and the women. Both halves of the Lloyd Noble Center. Very, very happy. Let's start with the men, because they're going to be up first on Saturday night against Gonzaga. Carson, we got to see a ton of the newcomers. What kind of stood out to you from there, and how pleased was Porter Mosley with the crew after game one against St. Francis?
The newcomers look good, especially Nigel Pack. I thought he played a really good game. He's a veteran player, definitely going to be a good player on this backcourt. I thought Tay Davis was impressive, someone with a little bit of size, plays a little bit of a forward role. I thought he looked really good. Yeah, the newcomers, I thought what was most impressive is how they adjusted in the second half. Like you just hinted at, the first half wasn't pretty. They played better basketball than St. Francis, but only led by 1 point at the half. Granted, the Red Flash, credit to them, they made some really gritty shots, got some really nice steals, but even so, it wasn't the best half of basketball that OU is going to play this season. And they looked a lot better. The newcomers looked really adjusted with some of the returners. Mo McGee had a really good game for OU. Kuwal attack. I don't know how to pronounce his last name yet.
Kuwal Attack, and
You
he
better
did.
figure it out because he was fantastic in the
Yes.
second half.
He was awesome. Yeah, he talked after the game. He was one of two players with Wiggy that we were able to speak to, and he said that adding a lot of weight. I say a lot of weight. He's still only about 200 pounds at 6'9", so he's not a big guy. But just getting more weight to his legs has helped him have a better jump, be a better scorer, and you saw those things in the second half, and that was a big reason why the final score was lopsided. So I mean, there were certainly not pretty things. There were some ugly moments in the first half, but at the end of the day, it's a 30-plus point win over a team that did make the NCAA tournament last year. So all things considered, I'd say pretty promising start.
If this gives you any window into the personality that Koala is, and he is an incredible guy to talk to. My two favorite Koala talk stories, just real quick. First off, last year we were asking, it was pretty clear he was like going to redshirt. First off, the great Jesse Crittenden, our good friend, and introduced himself as Jesse Crittenden, his last name, to which Koal said, "What was that?" And Jesse said, "Crittenden." And Koal said, "Yeah, we're not doing any of that." So we were like, wait a minute. We can't pronounce your name. You can't pronounce our name. It's fantastic. But we were asking, like, hey, you're probably going to redshirt. You trying to take like some offensive rebounding clinics from Stan Godwin, stuff like that. And he was like, no, he rebounds a shoot. And I was like, okay, I dig it. I like the confidence there. He actually debated asking the OU media relations if he could officially make the pronunciation of his name be Attack because that sounds cooler. To which they were like, well, maybe you should go with what your family name is, stuff like that. So he is an absolute.
If Joe Theismann can become Joe Theismann,
right,
then Koal can become Koal Attack.
He is a moral of the story. I hope we continue to get Koal moments because he's just a joy to talk to. All those guys seem pretty fun from basketball media today, but
he was awesome with us. Mo McGee definitely a little bit quieter. This was my first time talking to Koal. I hope we get more, like you said.
Yeah, Qualt rocks. So it'll be the big one against Gonzaga Saturday night. Was that 9:30? The late show there. Kai Rogers held out of that one, as is Jadon Jones. We talked to Porter a little bit later this week. Hopefully we get a bigger timeline. I think Kai might miss the first couple of weeks here just as a precautionary thing coming back there. And then for Jones, it sounds like it's more of a groin than a back. The back's what held him out all year last year. So sucks for him to get this close and then tweak it. But like I said, we'll get a timeline update from Porter hopefully here on Thursday or Friday. I don't remember when that is. It's been a week, folks. Not a lot of sleep happened on this side of things. Apologies. That's the first big non-conference game coming up on the hoop side of thing. The OU women are the other one. They're going to take on number 3 UCLA on Monday night. And Aber, that was a little touch and go there for a moment. 20-5 run by the Belmont Bruins to start the third quarter. Basically, it was the point of the game where Oklahoma got a little shot happy and forgot to feed Reagan Beers, who finished with 29 and 10. But part of what J.D. Baranchek had talked about, Aber, and something that's going to be the learning curve of this team is they're used to going 10, 11, 12 deep. They only have 11 players on the roster. And if you get someone like Isaiah Van who gets into foul trouble, which I thought it was terrible foul calls, but the call stands and she was in foul trouble, it's suddenly going to be hey, we don't have 3 other bodies to throw in. You all have to contribute great minutes every single night just because of how it's going to be, which I think is going to be a really fun test against UCLA on Monday night.
Yeah, it will be. And, obviously Reagan Beers will be such a big focus of that game, as will be, Aaliyah Chavez. But, it'll be interesting to see how Jenny Baranchik continues to manage this group. We've seen her be really experimental in non-conference play before, and then that rotation tightens and she's figured out some things about her team, how they can go. Doesn't have the same room to do that this year with the just 11-man roster, but I think there'll be a lot of that switching roles and trying to figure out, hey, what works best there. And we saw with this team, I think what we're used to seeing in a lot of ways. The turnover numbers were, fairly significant. What was it, 18 turnovers there? But Chavez just had a couple of them. I think that that's a really good sign. And I think you can, see the makings of a team that has a chance to be really special, but they've got to go through some serious growth, and they're going to get a great litmus test this weekend against UCLA.
The really good news on that is Verhulst, Beers, Sahara Williams, they all look like need some game time just to get up to speed as far as like the flow of things, but you know that they're going to be pretty experienced. And for Chavez, the pace of the game didn't seem to be too much. Just needed a couple shots to fall, and she can throw herself an entry pass. She can get the ball to Reagan Beers in the spot where Reagan doesn't have to do much other than hit her move and put it up. So I think that's going to be really, really, really helpful. And you'll get more Zayavan in game 2. I thought Keziah Lofton was big time too. Is it someone that basically was a big time recruit who until she went down, which cost her most of her high school season. It seemed like she was just trying to get back into the flow of playing competitive basketball again, which I expect that by the time that we get to, March, basically, that Keziah Lofton's going to be a big piece of this thing.
You guys, let me ask you this. You two who watched the game, I know, we sat down and turned on the third quarter and made it through the end of the second half. And about midway through the fourth quarter, my wife, former high school basketball player, watches all 82 Thunder games. She knows hoops. I give it up to her. After about 5 minutes, she immediately said that Chavez was the best athlete on the floor, like either team. Did that stand out to you as well?
Yeah, and it was something too that it's like the little things. I know that Jenny praised her defensive rotations after the game, things like that. It was the little stuff as far as like feel for the game of someone who you can just tell she's a fantastic athlete. She's going to be able to get out and run. She's going to be able to handle the physicality, but also just her feel for watch Chavez play defense. And it's not her man, but as someone's going to the rack, she has the ability, like that sixth sense to I step in and then I bail out right at the end, so that not only are you trying to blow by your defender, but you're what's this happening here? Why is somebody else moving in? Things like that. And I think that once she settles in, Aber, it's going to be a lot smoother. But yeah, you think that Jenny Baranczyk's team plays fast anyway. Give you Aaliyah Chavez, who can go behind the back, crossover, step back on a dime, and before you know what's hit you, she's created enough space to put up a three. It's very reminiscent, I thought, of the early Trae Young experience in Norman.
Yeah, and that's something that this team has been missing, is that dynamic point guard. Not that Nevaeh Tot and some of the other ones that they've rolled out that they're over the last couple of years have been bad, but they haven't been the dynamic playmakers on both sides of the ball, but especially offensively, as Aaliyah Chavez is. And when you've got that changes everything about how teams are able to defend them. I think that's going to open some things up for Reagan Beers inside. It's going to open some things up for Sahara Williams cutting to the basket. Obviously, Peyton Verhulst can do a little bit of everything. So I think that's a massive key toward getting this team to make a jump from where it was last year, which was a very good team, but who had a ceiling to one that you could see doing some really special things this year. So that'll be fun to see how that develops over the course of this season.
Yeah, and I think the big thing too, and this is not to pick on Nevaeh or anyone from last year's team, but so much of the frustration that Jenny would have is you'd get deep into the season and it's like the basic stuff. In game 1, you could already see the Chavez turnovers were because she was trying to make something incredible happen. Like she's trying to throw some really high level passes. It's not just wow, they lost the ball in the backcourt, or they like inbounded it out of bounds directly, or just totally airmailed it over Reagan Beers, which is kind of what happened a lot deep into. That's why we referenced it earlier. The meeting of it wasn't like, hey, there's the stuff you live with. The stuff I think for Chavez was all about shot selection. I think the turnover stuff you live with, and that's the things that I think they're going to refine as she just gets more used to. It's the adjustment for everybody, going from really good high school basketball, but high school basketball into the SEC. That's going to be adjustment for everybody. But feels like Chavez has just the innate basketball IQ that she's going to be able to be a quick learner and make that thing happen quick. And I'm excited. I'm pumped for that game on Monday night. 2 fantastic basketball games here setting up for the Sooner men on Saturday and the women on Monday. We'll have all that. We'll also have tomorrow night final battle series on the softball side of things. So we'll have all those updates on the website, Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com. And then we'll be back to the normal schedule next week. Monday night, we'll be talking to players ahead of the Crimson Tide. Next Tuesday, we'll get Britt Venables, Ben Arbuckle, all that fun stuff. And we'll be back here on Wednesday previewing it before Hoover, Carson, and I head toward Tuscaloosa for the last road trip of the year. Boys, anything else that we've missed on this bye week before we head off into the sunset here for a week? No? Okay, good. Very good. Well, be sure you head to the site, Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com. Give everybody the follows, all the places. Ryan Aber at RY Aber on the Twitter machine. Yes. Carson's at Carson D Field, at Johnny Hoover for Hoover. I'm at _ Ryan Chapman. If you're like, Ryan, you just threw a bunch of handles at me. Sooners on SI, easiest place. You go to Sooners on SI, turn on the notifications. We'll let you know when we're posting stuff. Same thing on Facebook, Oklahoma Sooners on SI. Just search it. If you see our logos on the site, all that stuff, it's all the same. It's us. And here's the telltale. There's just a bunch of stories about Oklahoma football, Oklahoma basketball, all that stuff. That's usually us. So hang with us there on the podcast. We'll talk to you guys, though, next Wednesday. For Aber, for Carson, for Hoove. We will see you when it is Alabama week. Have a good weekend.